Okay, I'll go ahead and get started today by just welcoming all of you guys. Sawadee Kap. Welcome to Wat Tung. This is our group learning program where we help you to learn the teachings of the Buddha in order to make your way to the enlightened mental state. This enlightened mind that the Buddha taught us that we can actually attain during this lifetime is where the mind is peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy, where you train your mind to the point where you no longer experience any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, boredom, loneliness, shyness, resentment, jealousy. Even the slightest displeasure is eliminated from the enlightened mind. So by training your mind to this point, what you're actually doing is you're eliminating certain pollutions that the Buddha discovered about the unenlightened mind. When you understand what these pollutions are and you eradicate them from the mind, this brightness and radiance of the enlightened mind can shine through. The mind will perform optimally. So not only are you eliminating the discontent feelings, but you're acquiring this focus, concentration, clarity of mind, and deep memory where the mind can perform optimally. You'll notice that your personal and professional relationships will really blossom, that you won't have this harshness or roughness or bitterness in any of your relationships. By the time you get to enlightenment, you're not even in a bad mood anymore. All the conditions that lead to a bad mood have been eliminated from the mind, so you're always in a good mood. And in order to accomplish that, meditation is a big part of that. But there's other things you would need to learn besides meditation as well. And in this program, on Sundays and Wednesdays, I share with you guys the teachings gradually over a 7-month period that will help you actually get to enlightenment. So I'd like to welcome all of you guys here at the temple, and there's even people joining us online through live stream and through Zoom. So as you guys move around the world and you travel, if you'd like to continue to learn and make this way to enlightenment, you can actually do that not only here at the temple, but you can join from wherever you are through the live stream. And we have books, videos, podcasts. You can get personal guidance and all this help available for you at no cost to be able to train your mind and make your way to the enlightened mind. So today our topic is meditation, developing your practice. This is chapter 11 in the book that we use for this program. The book that we use is part of the Words of the Buddha book series. It's a 13-book book series. And in this particular program on Sundays and Wednesdays, we use volume 1. And each Sunday I go chapter by chapter in guiding students and understanding the teachings of the Buddha and helping you make your way to enlightenment. Your journey to enlightenment, it's an independent journey. It's your journey to enlightenment. A teacher is here to guide you and help you understand the teachings that you need in order to make your way to enlightenment. But each individual practitioner is doing the work to move to enlightenment themselves. They have to do it themselves. A teacher can't give you enlightenment. Your parents can't give you enlightenment. You need to make your way to enlightenment through learning, through reflecting on the teachings and practicing them. When you're learning, you're coming to classes like this, you're learning through books or videos or podcasts or other resources, but you're never believing the teachings of the Buddha. The teachings of the Buddha aren't based in belief. You need to be able to learn them, and then you reflect on his teachings to be able to independently verify them. And then you practice his teachings. And through practicing the teachings, you're transforming the mind, uprooting the pollutions out of the mind. And as you do, you'll see more peace and more joy come into the mind. The radiance and the brightness of the enlightened mind can shine through more and more when you're eradicating these pollutions. So that's why each individual needs to do the work themselves in training their own mind. Oftentimes in the unenlightened state, we blame other people for the discontent feelings that you might experience. Like right now, when you get angry or frustrated or irritated, you might think that somebody else is causing you to be angry. Or you might think that this situation is frustrating you or annoying you. But when you learn in the teachings of the Buddha and you reflect on his teachings to independently verify them, you can see for yourself that your mind is actually causing these discontent feelings itself. And this is why you can actually eliminate them. If it was everybody else who was causing you to be angry, that means you have to train 8 billion people in the world to do things your way. And that's the only way you can get to peace and joy is if you train all these people. But you can also do the other thing, which is just train one mind. If you just train one mind, your own mind, you can actually experience the peace and joy. When you start to understand the truth of what's really causing these discontent feelings, then you can actually implement the real solutions. But as long as you don't understand what's causing the discontent feelings, you wouldn't be able to eliminate them. So usually when people first start on their journey to enlightenment, they start with learning the very first step of what we call right view, where you're learning what the problem is in the unenlightened mind, the cause of the problem, and the elimination of that problem. And then the path forward. So in 4 simple statements, the Buddha gives you the problem, the cause, the elimination, and the path forward. And when you learn this, again, you're learning it. You're not believing it. You learn it, you reflect on it to independently verify, because you can see for yourself, if you learn the teachings, how your mind is actually causing these feelings itself. And then when you implement the tools and techniques that he provides you, you can actually experience this more improvement to the condition of the mind. So not only are the teachings of the Buddha not rights, or not believe, and hope something good happens when you die, it's also not rites and rituals and ceremonies of worship either. You're not worshiping the Buddha. You're not doing those kinds of things, because you need to be able to train your mind. So while some people might consider the teachings of the Buddha a religion, I don't consider it that, because what you're actually doing is you're learning about the world around you. You're learning about your own mind, and you're trying to understand how to train this mind to be able to eradicate these pollutions that the Buddha taught you. And then using his tools and techniques, as you eradicate these pollutions, that's where you see the improvement to the condition of the mind. So you're learning now, reflecting now, practicing now, and you're seeing the results now in this life. The Buddha didn't teach a bunch of rules or commandments. He wasn't trying to convince you to do anything or force you to do anything. He already experienced this enlightened mental state where his mind was peaceful and joyful. He already accomplished that for himself. And then anybody who had a sincere interest to learn and practice to be able to experience that same mental state, he spent his time, for the remaining time of his life, from the age of 35 to 80, the next 45 years, he helped people understand what he did to be able to get to that enlightened mental state. So each individual person is on their own journey to be able to uncover the wisdom that the Buddha shared in order to get to this enlightened mental state. And a teacher's role is to just share that guidance with you and help you along the way with books, videos, podcasts, with personal guidance, with classes, courses, retreats like this, to be able to help you to be able to learn and be guided along the path. So once again, welcome to everybody. Welcome to those of you guys online that are joining us. We're going to start our class with meditation to help you guys experience breathing mindfulness meditation. We tend to start each class this way. And then after the meditation, then because today's topic is meditation, I'm going to go into a very detailed discussion about the 4 different types of meditation that the Buddha taught. I'm going to explain to you what these 4 are, what you're actually looking to accomplish in these meditations, and then how to actually do them. Because since the Buddha's death, there's been hundreds of meditations that people have created. But if you tried to learn all those different meditations, it would take you down a really far path of trying to be very wide with your practice, and you wouldn't be able to get very deep into your meditation practice because you'd be learning 50, 100, 200 different meditations. Whereas if you focus on the 4 that the Buddha taught, and it's really only 2 primary meditations that you would need, then you can get really deep into your practice and get the real results. It's the teachings of a Buddha that are actually going to lead to your enlightenment. All the changes and modifications that have been made since his lifetime, these don't actually lead to enlightenment, and it makes it more challenging for people to actually get to enlightenment. So what we do at this temple and in these classes and courses and retreats is we go back to the original source teachings of the Buddha, share with you what his words are so you can see for yourself what he actually taught. And then we encourage you not to believe those teachings, but learn them, reflect on them, and then practice them. So you're going to see as I present the teachings to you today about meditation that I'm going to be using the words of the Buddha to show you what he actually taught, and then invite you to learn that, reflect on it, and practice it so you can see the results for yourself. So if you'd like to join for meditation, whether you're here at the temple or you're online, you can all meditate together. I'm going to start meditation with some chanting to ease us into meditation. These chants, again, it's not rites, rituals, ceremonies, or worship. It's really just to help ease the mind into meditation. And we have the chants on a laminated sheet over there on the table. There's several of them. So if you'd like to see what the chants are and even chant along, you're welcome to get a copy of the chants. They're in the Pali language, which is known no longer a spoken language today. So we chant in this Pali language because it's the original language that the teachings are captured in. But I have the English translations on there as well, so you can see the English translations. And when you read these, you'll see that there's a lot of respect and admiration for the Buddha in these chants. And I suspect that the Buddha didn't actually create these chants himself, because a Buddha has already eliminated the ego or the arrogance. Any enlightened being has eliminated that arrogance and pride and boastfulness. So a Buddha wouldn't walk around teaching people to chant to him and bow down to him and all these kinds of things. He would be teaching people how to eliminate things like conceit and arrogance and boastfulness and things like that. So I suspect his students created these either during his life or after his death as a way to respect him and honor him. Because if you learn from a teacher how to move from sadness, anger, frustration, and all those other discontent feelings to a mind that is completely peaceful and joyful always, you probably have a lot of respect for that individual. And he didn't want anything from his students. He didn't expect anything from his students, but he just helped them out of the kindness of his heart. So I suspect that his students actually created these chants. So we'll ease into meditation with these chants. Then I'll provide some guidance for a brief period of time, just guiding you in meditation and helping you understand how to actually meditate. But then there'll be a period of time where I won't be talking at all. We'll just all be meditating together. You'll probably hear an occasional sound like a car or a bird or a dog barking, but all of these things are impermanent. And when you hear these things, you can just cut that off and let it go and come back to the breath, training the mind to be unaffected by any external thing, like any kind of particular sound or anything like that. Then after we have that period of time where we're actually meditating, then I'll come out of the meditation with a chant as well to ease us out of the meditation. In terms of your body positioning, you can be sitting in a chair, you could be on the floor. There's actually 4 different positions for meditation. There's seated, lying, standing, and walking. We're going to be talking about these today, and I'm going to explain to you all the different situations where you might use these. It's important that the body's comfortable, that it's not painful, but it's not luxurious. So if you're on the floor, you might just sit with your legs lightly crossed, not real tight, because you're not interested in impeding the circulation. And some people like to even have multiple cushions. We have many cushions over there, so feel free to get as many as you like. The higher your hips are, it'll lessen the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, and this helps the circulation to flow. And if at any point you need a chair or anything, feel free to get a chair. Whatever's comfortable for you. You're not going to maybe permanently be able to sit on the floor. At different times in your life, you might need to sit in a chair or even do lying meditation or standing or walking. And then once your lower body is nice and comfortable, the Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. If this is comfortable for you, you could use this, but not everybody's going to find this comfortable. This practice isn't about everybody doing it exactly the same way. It's about finding what's comfortable for you. So some people like to put their palms on their thighs or their knees. Some people put their palms up. Again, the lower body and hands and arms should be nice and comfortable. The upper body should be erect. This keeps the mind attentive and alert during the meditation. Whereas if you were kind of slouched, the mind would be kind of lazy and lethargic. You would like your mind to be active and attentive. But also if you were real rigid, the mind could be overactive or uptight. So you'd like the upper body to be in the middle, where it's upright and erect to keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation. So I'm going to ease us into meditation with some chanting, and then I'll be back with some guidance to help you further. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Wat Tung Bhagavanang Abhivateyami Savakhato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Saṅghang Namami นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิโตอนุเตโรปุริสานามาสติสัตตาตาวัปมานุสนังโอโตภะคะวะติ Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled. Just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then, whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to your next inhale, breathe in gradually through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, establishing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธภะคะวาโหตังมหาเกวันนังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหาเกวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเกวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหะเกวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิโตอนุเตโรปุริสาธัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามานุสนังโหโตภะคะวะติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation, what I'm going to do is just transition over to sharing teachings with you guys about meditation. And as you guys have questions, you're welcome to ask those questions either here at the temple or online. If you're here at the temple and you'd like to ask questions, we have microphones here in the white bowl that you guys can pass around. That way the people online will be able to hear your questions. And for those of you guys online, if you're in Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, you can put your question in the comment section and I'll see that and be able to answer your question. Or if you're in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand and ask any questions that you like directly. And for those of you guys that are here at the temple, just to let you guys know, if this is your first time here, there's a bathroom in the back of the room, the very last door on the right. You're welcome to use it at any point. There's even bathrooms outside this classroom. If you go outside and kind of follow the signs, you'll see that there's a larger bathroom out there. We even have water here that students provide that you're welcome to help yourself to, make yourself comfortable. And as I mentioned, you're welcome to ask questions as we go throughout our class today. So the topic that I have to share with you guys is about meditation and helping you guys to learn what meditation is and why somebody would do it and the benefits of doing meditation and helping you understand how to actually conduct a meditation session. So to understand meditation, I like to start with these basics just to help you get acquainted with meditation. I don't like to assume that your understanding or your definition of meditation or anything else that I teach is the same as mine. So I'm just starting with a very brief definition of what meditation is to help you guys understand from my perspective of what meditation is and what it isn't. And you may or may not agree with this, and that's okay, but at least you'll know that when I'm talking about meditation, this is what I'm actually talking about. What meditation is it's a technique to actively train the mind during dedicated, independent, purposeful training sessions to eliminate certain unwholesome qualities of the mind and or cultivate certain wholesome qualities of the mind in the positions of seated, lying, standing, or walking. So it's a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities from the mind and cultivating certain wholesome qualities. And as we go today, and I share with you the 4 different types of meditation that the Buddha taught, I'm going to share with you what you're eliminating as an unwholesome quality from the mind based on that meditation, and what are the wholesome qualities that you're looking to cultivate, because this is the why behind your meditation. This is why you're actually doing meditation. It's important to not only understand what meditation is, but it's also important to understand what meditation isn't, because sometimes nowadays in modern times, somebody might say, I'm going to go walk the dog and meditate, or I'm going to go for a jog or exercise to the gym and meditate, or I'm going to go for a drive in the car and meditate, or I'm going to go do some gardening and meditate. This isn't meditation, even though these things are very helpful and beneficial for one's life, and you might have these as hobbies in order to do different things and accomplish different things in your life. It's important that you understand that these things aren't meditation, because when I talk about meditation, if you thought that when you were walking the dog, you were meditating and that's all you ever did was walk the dog, and you thought you were making your way to enlightenment through that activity of meditation, if you thought walking the dog was meditation, then you wouldn't actually be doing what you needed to cultivate certain wholesome qualities and eliminate certain unwholesome qualities through this dedicated, active, purposeful training session. So while these activities may be very beneficial and something that somebody chooses to do for their life, you shouldn't consider these meditation, because there's this active role that you need to have in meditation where you're actively training the mind and you're actively eliminating certain unwholesome qualities and cultivating certain wholesome qualities. As you develop a meditation practice, it's very helpful to have a meditation teacher that if you try to awaken the mind to enlightenment on your own, you most likely will run into all kinds of different difficulties. One of the things that makes a Buddha is that they're able to get to enlightenment by themselves without any help of any teachers or any guides. This is the first criteria of what makes a Buddha, is they get to enlightenment on their own without the help of any teachers or any guides. Then the second criteria is that they dedicate the rest of their life to sharing their independently discovered teachings. And during their lifetime, countless people get to enlightenment. Because of their deep wisdom, countless people get to this mental state where the mind's peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. And then the third criteria that makes a Buddha is that they preserve their teachings in such a way that countless more people can get to enlightenment after their death. So a Buddha can get to enlightenment by themselves. They can independently share their teachings, and countless people get to enlightenment, and they preserve their teachings so that other people can get to enlightenment after their death. But everybody else is going to need teachers and guides to help you. So while this is an independent journey and you're on your own independent journey, you're going to need teachers and guides to help you along the way. If you tried to just watch YouTube videos or read books and tried to get to enlightenment in this way, you could find yourself in some real challenging times. There's some students that have found me over the years that tried to do this on their own, and after a period of time, they found all kinds of difficulties. There's this one particular story I can tell you guys about where this doctor was trying to do this work on his own. He was trying to meditate and train his mind, and he got to the point where he was highly depressed. His life was falling apart. He couldn't work anymore. He couldn't actually practice his profession. He started having suicidal thoughts. He was having all kinds of difficulties. He was even sleeping for 23 hours a day at one point. His mind was having all kinds of difficulties because he didn't have guidance. He didn't understand what he was doing. He was just kind of trying to patch things together from a little bit from YouTube, a little bit from books, a little bit from a podcast here or there. And he wasn't actually doing what he needed to be doing to train his mind. So eventually, after about 2 years, he reached out and found a teacher. He found me. He came here to Thailand for a couple of weeks, and he learned. And then when he went back to his own country, he kept learning. And after a period of time, he ultimately got back to work, and his life got put back together, and he's completely fine now. But there was a period of about 4 to 6 years that his life was very miserable. And this was all because he lacked the wisdom to understand that he needed a teacher in order to help him on the path to enlightenment. I don't suspect that any of you will run into those kinds of challenges or difficulties because you're learning to have a teacher And whether I'm your teacher or somebody else is your teacher, you should have somebody that you can reach out to, that as you're meditating and you're training your mind, as you experience different things, you have a person that you can reach out to and just ask questions occasionally. It's not somebody that you need to be in constant contact with every day or every week, but just have some type of relationship that you have a live person that you can reach out to and say, hey, I'm experiencing this in meditation. Is this normal, or is there something that I should be doing differently? And if what you get back from me is, oh, that's normal, keep going, this is completely normal, people experience this will pass, then that'll give you some confidence and give you some reassurance that you're headed in the right direction, and you'll find that you can continue to make your way closer and closer to enlightenment. So it's important to have a person, a real life person that you can reach out to and get guidance from as you decide that that's what you need to do. Then there's 4 meditation positions that you typically learn as part of your meditation practice. And I'm going to share with you these 4 positions and how I use these positions. But then as I teach, don't believe me. Don't just follow what I'm doing. Instead, use what I'm sharing with you as content that you're learning, then reflect on that and then practice for yourself and see where these positions work for you and where they don't work for you. So I'm going to share with you these 4 positions, and then you can decide for yourself how to implement them and when to implement them. And then you can see the truth for yourself in which situations these work and in which situations they're not working. So the seated position is what you guys are pretty much did today, where either you're sitting on the floor or you're sitting in a chair. And this is a common position that people learn in. And usually it's, if you're on the floor, you have some cushions under your rear, you're sitting with your legs crossed and guided the way that I guided you in meditation today. And you can also sit in a chair or a wheelchair or on a bench or anything like this. And in those situations, you would also like to have your body be comfortable, or maybe your feet are flat on the floor, or maybe lightly crossed at the ankles. Your lower body and hands and arms are completely relaxed, and your upper body is erect. The seated position is kind of like the go-to position for meditators because it's very accessible. You can pretty much sit just about anywhere. You could be at a bus stop, waiting for a bus and doing a little bit of meditation. You could be at a doctor's office or anywhere else, and you could be sitting and actually meditating. So you might find that this is like your go-to position perhaps, but not everybody. Sometimes you might need these other positions for different reasons because you're not going to be able to permanently be in just one position all the time. So there's these other positions like lying position. This one is really good if the body's in any kind of pain. If you're sitting or using any of these other positions and you're noticing any pain in the body, you can just lie flat on the ground, face up. If you've ever done yoga, I think they call this resting pose or shavasana pose, where you can just lay on your back, face up, and your palms out, and all the muscles in the body are completely relaxed. This is great if you're noticing any pain in the body. But you need to be aware of this position because you can oftentimes fall asleep in your meditation, and this might not be what you're interested in doing. And even in the seated position, you can get a little bit sleepy during the meditation. So that's where a standing and walking position comes in. That if you're noticing you're getting sleepy in your meditation and you're dozing off, you can either just go to sleep and get some rest, or you can switch to another position and you can extend your meditation cycle and your meditation session. By doing standing, you would just stand up straight, maybe lightly clasp your wrist in front of you, or put your arms to the side, or maybe lightly clasp them behind you. And this is a very nice position if you're noticing that you're falling asleep or dozing off in meditation, because it keeps the mind a bit more invigorated. And walking meditation is the same way. It kind of keeps the mind more attentive and alert. The other situation you might decide to use walking meditation is if you're noticing the mind is overactive. Sometimes you might be looking to meditate and the last thing you're thinking about is sitting down to actually meditate, because the mind could be overactive and you can have a lot of energy in the mind. So walking meditation is really good for this. I'm going to be teaching this in an upcoming course that I'm starting tomorrow. It's a 5-day course. I'm going to be teaching walking meditation on Wednesday afternoon, where it's a very specialized type of meditation. It's not done in the way that you just learned this particular meditation. It's done differently. And this is a meditation that you can use to keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation if you're noticing that you're dozing off, or you could use it if you notice overactivity in the mind and the last thing you're thinking about is just being still and in one spot. And you can actually integrate these positions at different times. It doesn't mean when you start your meditation session that you need to start with one position meditation and stick with that all the way through. If you start with seated meditation and you're 5 minutes into it and you notice your mind is pretty overactive, you could actually switch to a walking meditation. Or if you were doing walking meditation and that's what you were starting out with, you could switch to lying or standing or some other position. Or you could just do one position all the way through, like what we did today for the most of us, that we just stayed in one position all the way through. So don't feel like you have to strike a pose and stay in that pose the whole time. If you're ever noticing any pain in the body, you would like to adjust the body. There's no certificates or awards given for experiencing pain in meditation and just breathing through it. This would be unwise because your mind is just experiencing pain, and you're not able to actively train the mind. So if at any point you notice pain in the physical body, you would like to adjust your position and move to a different position perhaps, or just adjust the body within that same position. So these are just some meditation basics to help you guys get started before we dive in more deeply and talk about meditation more as a whole. Is there any questions that you guys have on any of the kind of basics that we just talked about? Again, for those of you guys online, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or raise your hand in Zoom. Or those of you guys here at the temple, you can just raise your hand or just get a microphone or pass those around, and the people online will be able to hear you. Do you guys have any questions? Yes, sir. If you wouldn't mind getting one of those, there's a gray switch on the front. You can just press that. And we have two, so if you guys need a microphone in the back to pass around, and we can have one up here in the front to pass around. There's kind of a little bit of a delay when you turn it on. There you go.
Yeah, my question is, what happens, or is it common if you get really bored or you're feeling anxious? Like, how long has it been? How long is it going to be? How long, like, you start getting a little agitated and anxious and maybe bored?
Yeah, this is the underlying problem that the Buddha discovered among all the other problems that the unenlightened mind has. It's called craving, desire, attachment, or wants or expectations. It's this longing and yearning in the mind. This is what causes discontent feelings like boredom or anger, sadness, frustration, stress, anxiety, all these different discontent feelings. It's caused by this aspect of the mind where it's longing and yearning. It's wanting something that it doesn't have. It's not content in the present moment. So when you're first starting meditation, you're going to have a significant amount of craving or desire or attachment or this longing, yearning in your mind. That's what you're working to eliminate. So if you're getting bored in meditation or feeling anxious or any of the other things that you mentioned, this is the underlying problem that you're working to get rid of. So as you notice that that's occurring, you would like to just keep bringing the mind back to the breath and back to the breath and back to the breath. And over time, you'll eliminate that longing, yearning, where the mind can then just be peaceful and joyful in the present moment. It's not bored or lonely or feeling other kind of thoughts like this or other kind of feelings. But you can eliminate all of that, but it just takes training. And there's an entire path. It's not just meditation that's going to be able to help you get to that mental state. Meditation is a big part of it, but there's also other aspects of the path that you need to learn. So this is normal, and with time of training your mind, you'll overcome that and you won't experience it anymore. But you might notice that for 3 months, 6 months, a year. It's up to each individual mind, depending on how much dedication and effort you put into meditating. You can see that be eliminated sooner rather than later. But each individual mind that's coming to the path to enlightenment, there's a different level of pollution in the mind. And then there's a different amount of dedication and determination that each person has. So, but over time, as you train your mind more, this will be eliminated.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions anywhere, so I'm going to move on to the next part of what I have to share with you guys, which is starting and conducting your meditation practice. We're going to go through some details here to help you get really situated with meditation and understanding how to conduct a meditation session. The first thing that I like to share is the mind is the boss and the body is the employee. The reason why is because this is going to help you understand your meditation position. Because if you understand that the body's the employee and the boss is the mind, you've got to go through the employee in order to get to the boss. You can't just go to the boss. So that's why we're interested in having the body be comfortable, not luxurious and not painful. Because if the employees are luxurious, they're going to be lackadaisical and complacent. They're not going to be interested to take you to go see the boss. But also, if the employees are experiencing pain, they're not going to be interested to take you to go see the boss either. So you need the body or the employee to be comfortable. And when the employee is comfortable, it'll take you to go see the boss. You can access the mind and start training the actual mind. So this is why you're not interested in experiencing pain during the meditation. So if at any point you notice pain, just adjust the body positioning within that position or just change positions. That's an option as well. Then the Buddha teaches in his own words, he says, set up mindfulness in front of you. In this book series, there's an entire book dedicated to meditation in the words of the Buddha, the original words of the Buddha. In the first book, which is the foundational book that helps you to lay down a foundation of the path to enlightenment, there's this one chapter, 11, that I dedicate to meditation. But in this book series, there's actually an entire book dedicated to meditation in the original words of the Buddha. And some of those I'm going to be sharing with you today. But one of the things that you'll see consistently when he's talking about meditation and he's guiding his students how to meditate, he will use this phrase where he says, before you meditate, set up mindfulness in front of you. What this means is, if you understand the way the Buddha describes mindfulness, is he describes it as awareness of the mind. Even though this isn't necessarily the way that you're using it or you see other people using it in daily life, if you're interested in getting to enlightenment in the way that the Buddha taught, you would need to know how he describes mindfulness, which is awareness of the mind. So what you're looking to do before meditation is set up awareness of your mind, where you're not just interested to plop down into meditation and start meditating, because with that, your mind's not really active or invigorated to actually meditate. So you would like to ease the mind into meditation with some awareness of mind. So that's one of the reasons why I do chanting. You guys heard me do chanting before and after meditation. This kind of brings some vigor into the mind. It kind of helps the mind become more attentive and more alert. You're getting this awareness of the mind as you're easing into meditation, because in order to chant, you're going to need to have awareness of the mind. And you even need to have awareness of the breath as well, which are two things that you're needing when you get into meditation. So if you're doing something like chanting for a little bit of time before meditation, you're getting some awareness of mind and awareness of the breath as you ease into meditation, so that now when you're actually in meditation, you're getting more benefit sooner rather than later. Whereas if you were to just to plop down into meditation, it might be 10 minutes or 15 minutes before you actually start getting the real benefits of the meditation. But by doing something like chanting to ease into meditation, you can get benefit right from the beginning. And if you're not interested in chanting, that's okay. You don't have to chant in order to get to enlightenment. It's not a requirement to actually chant in order to get to enlightenment. During the lifetime of the Buddha, they used chanting as a way to commit his teachings to memory. So every 2 weeks, they would chant his teachings word for word, because they didn't write things down during his lifetime. The technology to write things down didn't exist in that region of the world yet. So everything that he taught was an oral tradition. So during his lifetime, you needed to chant in order to commit the teachings to memory and then be able to practice them. But nowadays we have books and videos and podcasts and things like this that chanting isn't required. So if you would like to chant, you're welcome to, and you can learn that in some of the various courses and retreats that I offer. But if you're not interested in chanting, it's okay, but just be sure you're setting up mindfulness in front of you before you actually ease into meditation. For some people, they might choose to do a little bit of stretching. They might choose to empty the organs in the bathroom. They might choose to just kind of ease the mind into meditation. So you can find what works best for you. Again, it's not about everybody doing it exactly the same way. It's about finding what works best for you. And the teachings of the Buddha are providing you the guidance of what he discovered works. And then you can adopt that for your particular life and your particular situation. Then in terms of time, frequency, and schedule, it's not going to be possible for you to meditate at exactly the same time every single day. This isn't actually possible. If you were to set a goal of meditating every day at 8 a.m. or 3 p.m. or something like this, you're not going to be able to it's not going to be feasible for you to meditate at the same exact time. Because of the universal truth of impermanence, things are going to happen. Things are going to come up. So what I suggest students to do is have anchor points in their life, like morning and evening. Have the goal of, okay, I'm going to meditate at some point in the morning and some point in the evening. And that's going to fluctuate depending on what's going on. There were times when I was meditating and I would be in meditation in the morning. I'd just woken up and meditated and thinking that I was at home all by myself and it's time to meditate, and I would start meditating. And 3 minutes into the meditation, my son would come into the room and say, "Dad, I need you to take me to school." I was like, "Huh? I thought your mom was taking you to school today." And he's like, "Yeah, me too, but she's gone. So I need you to take me to school." And I was like, "All right." So I had to get up and go take him to school. And then when I came back, I just meditated from there, right? So if you had this fixed time in your mind that you're always going to meditate at 8 a.m. every day, and things like this occurred, you would be frustrated and irritated because your mind's holding on to this time, wanting to meditate at exactly the same time every day. And when you get what you want, you would get these pleasant feelings of being happy or excited. But then when you don't get what you want, you'd be frustrated or irritated or annoyed. So the way that you can train your mind to not do that is don't be fixed to one specific time to meditate every single day. That you understand that it's flexible, and you have these anchor points of morning and evening. The Buddha meditated 3 times a day during his lifetime, morning, midday, and evening. He says this in his teachings, and he shares that with you. Keep in mind, 2,500 years ago, they didn't have watches. They didn't have clocks. So he didn't meditate at exactly the same time every day. So if somebody tells you that you have to meditate at 3:30 a.m. every day in order to get to enlightenment, this is impossible. You're not going to be able to do that. And the Buddha didn't do that because he didn't even know what 3:30 a.m. was, because they didn't have timepieces during his lifetime. So you can decide to meditate at any point during the day that you would like. There's no specific time that's better than others. You can meditate at any point. Your mind doesn't know what time it is unless you look at a timepiece, right? And then in terms of the frequency, what you would like to build up to is 2 to 3 sessions per day. Remember, the Buddha meditated 3 times a day, but he was also an ordained practitioner where he just basically focused on training his mind and helping people learn how to train their mind. So you might have a career, you might have work, you might have family. You should be able to schedule, or at least work into your schedule, 2 to 3 meditations a day where you're meditating morning and evening. And if you can get a middle of the day meditation, this will be really helpful for you. What you'll notice is when you get up to 30 minutes or more per session, this is where the most benefit comes in. But you're probably not going to be able to start with 30 minutes a day, because most people might start at just 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. You're going to notice that your mind's going to have a certain capacity. I know when I first started, I could only meditate about a minute or 2 at tops, that it felt like there was just a brick wall in the mind, and it was just this bombardment of thoughts. So a minute or 2 is really all I could do when I first started. But then what you do is you gradually train your mind more and more and more to expand that. One of the biggest myths about the teachings of the Buddha and the Buddha's life is that people think that he meditated his way to enlightenment, or that he sat under a tree, he meditated, and he instantly got to enlightenment. But this isn't actually true. If you study the original teachings of the Buddha, he talks about gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. He says very clearly that he did not get to enlightenment instantaneously. It took him 6 years to get to enlightenment. So you're going to need the same thing as this gradual training and this gradual progress. And your meditation practice is part of that. So if you put the expectation on yourself that you should be able to meditate 2 or 3 times a day for 30 minutes or more right from the beginning, it's going to be somewhat demotivating, because you're most likely not going to be able to accomplish that. So what you would like to do is gradually build up to that. I've seen some students take 6 months, a year, even 2 years to build up to the 2 or 3 sessions per day for 30 minutes or more. But this is where you will notice the most benefits. And then you might notice sleepiness during your meditation. You might notice that you're dozing off. And I suggest you either just go to sleep and get some rest, or that you switch meditation positions. What you might notice is when you first start meditating and you start really getting into meditation, that you have more of a tendency to sleep. You might notice you start sleeping better as you start meditating because your mind's starting to do this work to eradicate the pollutions out of the mind. And right now you might not be sleeping very well. And as you start training your mind and you start experiencing the mind performing more optimally, you might notice that the mind wants to sleep more regularly and more sporadically. So if you're in meditation and you're noticing that you're dozing off or you're getting really sleepy, then maybe just get some sleep. Maybe the mind needs some sleep. Or you might need to just switch positions. You need to make the decision for yourself. After you get 3 months, 6 months into your meditation, you'll notice that sleepiness will start to fade away because your mind will be more trained to overcome that sleepiness, that there won't be as much pollution in your mind, and you'll notice that you have done more training for the mind and you won't encounter that deep sleepiness as much as you once did when you first get started with meditation. Then you might notice physical sensations in the body during your meditation. You might notice an itch or something like this during the meditation. This is very common. If you're noticing anything like that, what I would suggest that you do is if you notice an itch in the body, that you try not to itch it if you can. But you might notice that you get, 5 seconds, 10 seconds into it, and you're like, oh, I just got to itch that itch. So go ahead and do that if that's what you need to do. But what you would like to do is try to train the mind for longer and longer periods of time where you don't need to itch, that you can see the itch arise, it changes, and it fades away. It's impermanent. It's not going to be permanent. So if you can stay focused on the breath and train the mind to not be affected by these external things, this can be really helpful for the mind. So you might notice the first time this happens, you can go maybe 5 seconds or maybe even 3 seconds without itching. But then next time, try to expand it, maybe 8 or 10 or 12 seconds, and keep trying to expand it all the way to the point where you can see that itch arise, it changes, and it fades away, and you don't need to actually itch it. And as I mentioned, if you experience physical pain, adjust the body. So physical sensations here, I'm talking about things like itches and things like that. Physical sensations, if you have a pain in the body, you should adjust the body. You might even notice along these lines of physical sensations, you might notice a mosquito flying around. I've even had flies land on my head and start crawling around. I've had them even go up in my nose and in my ears and things like this while I was meditating. I think of these things as like they're assisting me in seeing if I can truly stay concentrated on the breath. They're kind of like assisting me in challenging my mind and testing my mind. So in these situations, I just let them continue to fly around. I had them walk out on my nose and walk around on my nose, and I just tried to see if I could stay focused and concentrated even though this was occurring. The fly's not hurting me. The mosquito's not hurting me. There's no harm that's coming to me from this. In fact, it was actually helping to train the mind to become more concentrated and more focused. So you might see this kind of thing occur, and you can choose for yourself what you would like to do in those situations. But rather than looking at it as something annoying or as a pest, instead maybe look at it as these insects are assisting you in your meditation and trying to help you to learn to be more focused and more concentrated. Then you might notice visual stimulation during your meditation, that with your eyes closed, you can actually still see things because sight is occurring inside the brain. You don't actually need your eyes in order to see. The eye is just there to pull in light into the mind and into the brain. The sight is actually occurring in the brain itself. When you're training the mind, which is non-physical and intangible, it's affecting the brain. The brain and the mind are two different things. They're not the same thing. So as you're training the mind, there can be an effect to the brain. Scientists are showing this through MRIs and CAT scans. They're starting to research and study people who are long-term meditators. And they're noticing that the physical structures of the brain are changing when people are training their mind. So as you're training your mind, in the physical structures of the brain are changing, you might notice colors of white or green or purple. You might have memories from long in the past that you thought were long gone out of the mind start to resurface and things like this. This is very common to have visual stimulation during your meditation. You don't need to run out and ask somebody, what does this mean? I see green in my meditation. Does that mean I'm going to get wealthy in the next 1 year or 2 years? No, it's just that the brain is changing. The physical structures are changing. changing. You're going to see some improvements to the brain and to the mind. You don't have to run out and talk to a fortune teller or anybody to figure out what's going on. Instead, just understand that this is actually really helpful for the mind, that you're training the mind, and now the brain is actually physically changing. And as you see this visual stimulation, just cut that off and bring the mind back to the breath. Don't get obsessed with this or feel like you need to go out and seek any kind of guidance on what does this color mean versus that color. It's just the structures of the brain physically changing, and it's actually really good for the mind and for the brain, that your mind and your brain are going to start functioning more and more optimally as you train your mind in this way. And then some people ask questions about external stimulus like candles and incense and beads and music and things like this. I don't recommend that you use any of those things in order to meditate. If you're currently using those things, if you're meditating, it's okay. But if I was you, I would start stripping those things away out of your meditation, because the mind oftentimes is just clinging to these things. So if you have a favorite candle or a favorite scent or a favorite blanket that you always use when you're meditating, your mind's going to get attached to this. It's going to get fixed to this. And then when you're away, like on a holiday, or if you're in the mountains of Chiang Mai on a camping trip or a trekking trip, you're not going to be able to meditate in those situations because you don't have your favorite phone app with you, or you don't have your favorite incense or candle or something like this. You would like to build up a meditation practice where you can meditate anywhere at any time. And you only really need three things to accomplish this. You need the body, you need the mind, and you need the breath. Those are the only three things that you actually need to meditate. And you'll have those three things with you for the rest of this life. You'll have the body, you'll have the mind, and you'll have the breath. And as long as you have those three things, that's really all you need in order to meditate. So all these extra things like beads and candles and incense, if you decide to use them every once in a while, that's up to you. But about 80 or 90% of the time, I would encourage you to just meditate with the body, the mind, and the breath, just alone by yourself, training your mind to be unattached. It's great to come to a group meditation like this and meditate with other people occasionally, but you would like to build up your practice where it's just the body, the mind, and the breath, and you can be independent in your practice of meditation. So this is how to really start and conduct your meditation session. This is to help you kind of get started with some of the details of meditation. And I go through this in detail in the first book. In chapter 11, I explain these things in detail there as well. These are some of the words of the Buddha about the 4 different types of meditation that he taught. And I'm going to share this with you, which is the original words of the Buddha. Then I'm going to go through and teach you each one of these individual meditations. I'm sharing with you the original words of the Buddha here so that you can see the meditations that I teach you are the same things that the Buddha taught. So prior to this little excerpt here, the Buddha was talking to his students about 5 things that they should develop as part of their life practice in order to get to enlightenment. And then he says, okay, having based himself on these 5 things, meaning the 5 things before that, the monk should develop further another 4 things. And these are the 4 types of meditation that he's teaching one to develop. He says the perception of unattractiveness of the body should be developed to abandon lust. This is a meditation to eliminate sexual cravings in the mind. And I'll explain to you what that is and why somebody might be interested to do that. Then he says loving kindness should be developed to abandon ill will. This is one of the fetters or pollutions or taints or defilements that are in the mind. The anger, the hatred, the ill will, the animosity, the bitterness that the unenlightened mind has. By the time you get to enlightenment, that's all gone. You don't have that in the mind anymore. So it's loving kindness meditation that's going to help you to be able to accomplish that. Then what we just did this morning, which is breathing mindfulness meditation, he says mindfulness of breathing should be developed in order to cut off thoughts. You're not trying to eliminate your thoughts in meditation, but what you're doing is trying to gain this discipline of the mind, and cutting off your thoughts will help you to do that. I'm going to explain to you more detail about this and why we actually meditate in that way. Then he says the perception of impermanence should be developed to eradicate the conceit, I am. When one perceives impermanence, the perception of non-self is stabilized. One who perceives non-self eradicates the conceit, I am. which is nibbana, or enlightenment, in this very life. So this relates to a specific teaching that I'll share with you guys here in a moment. This is a specific type of meditation to help you eliminate one of the pollutions that he discovered in the mind, referred to as personal existence view. And I'll explain to you, and you'll understand this a bit more when we get to that point. So these are the 4 meditations. Here he's saying this meditation to eliminate sexual cravings or lust, to eliminate anger, hatred, ill will, to cut off thoughts, and to eliminate this conceit of I am. And these are 4 different types of meditations. And now here I'm listing them out and helping you to see the unwholesome qualities that you're eliminating and the wholesome qualities that you're cultivating. And I put them in order because the Buddha actually orders these in an order of importance when you look at other parts of his teachings. He talks about breathing mindfulness meditation as a top priority. And if you understand the reason why you're doing breathing mindfulness meditation and what's actually causing the problems in the unenlightened mind, you'll understand why this is a priority. So breathing mindfulness meditation, you're eliminating craving, desire, attachment. This is what we were just talking about related to this question, is that that's what's causing the discontent feelings. When you're getting angry and frustrated and irritated and annoyed and having guilt and shame and fear and stress, anxiety, resentment, boredom, loneliness, shyness, all these different feelings, it's because of craving, desire, attachment. The mind is longing, yearning, wanting something to be a certain way. And when you get the objects of your affection, you get pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. So for example, if you have a craving or a desire to go hiking or to go outside and play, if it's sunny outside, you'll get excited. You'll get happy because it's sunny outside. You're getting your cravings fulfilled. Like, yeah, I have this real longing, this yearning to go hiking and go outside with my friends. So when it's sunny outside, you'll get happy. But that feeling is what we call a conditioned feeling, that it arises, it changes, and it fades away. That feeling of happiness is based on some condition. So now, if you go take a shower and you come out and you see it's raining, you might get frustrated and irritated or annoyed, right? If you had a longing, yearning for it to be sunny, and now you based your inner feeling of happiness on the sun, that's a conditioned feeling. That your feeling is based on the condition of the sun. And now when the sun changes, because the sun is impermanent, all these things around you are impermanent. And as long as you crave permanence, you can only be happy when those conditions are met. So if it's sunny, or your bank account is a certain balance, or if your mom and dad call you, or your brothers and sisters do a certain thing, or your life partner does a certain thing, or your boss or your coworkers do a certain thing, if they do it the way you want it to be done, you'll be happy and excited. But those things are impermanent. You can't get those things your way permanently. So when those conditions change, your feelings of happiness is also changing. It's moving to frustration or irritation or annoyance because the mind's craving for things to be a certain way permanently in the unenlightened state. So if you keep allowing the mind to have conditioned feelings of happiness, excitement, elation, then you can only be happy when these conditions are met. If this happens and this happens and this happens and this happens, then I will be happy. But that's conditional happiness. It's undesirable. It's unsatisfying because it's temporary. What you're looking to get to with the enlightened mental state is where the mind's permanently happy, permanently joyful. We might call it unconditioned happiness or the unconditioned mental quality of joy, where you can just always be happy. So in the unenlightened state, if it's sunny outside, you might be happy. But then when it rains, you might be sad or frustrated because it's a conditional feeling. In the enlightened mental state, if it's sunny outside, okay, you were already happy before you ever saw that it was sunny outside. And then when it starts raining, okay, that's fine too. This rain is impermanent. Instead of going hiking, maybe you go to the mall, maybe you go to your friend's house, maybe you invite some friends over to have dinner. But if you allow the mind to keep getting conditional feelings based on cravings, desires, attachments, these longing and yearning, then you can only be happy in a certain situation if certain criteria are met. So in order to eliminate this craving, desire, attachment, breathing mindfulness meditation is used so that when you're focused on the breath and the mind moves off the breath, you're cutting that off, letting it go, and bringing the mind back to the breath, gaining this inner control. And you're also getting this mindfulness or awareness of mind or concentration. So if you can have this awareness of the mind, you can have concentration when you're in daily life and you go out and about in daily life and you see the mind pulling towards the objects of your affection, when you're longing and yearning, you know that that's going to end up in painful feelings at some point. Because even if you get that brand new pair of shoes at the mall, you might get happy and excited in that situation, but a couple of weeks later, you're going to be sad when they get damaged or they get stolen or they get misplaced or something like this. Or if you get really excited when you see those shoes in the window at the mall and then you go inside the store and they don't have your size, you'll be frustrated because your mind's craving, it's longing, it's yearning for this particular thing. Or if you've ever been in a relationship with a boyfriend or girlfriend or husband or wife, and when you first got together, you got so excited and so happy because this person's showing affection to you. You're going out to the movies, you're going out to dinner, maybe you're having intimate contact as well. But then, because you allowed the mind to get those conditioned feelings based on, I've got a boyfriend or I have a girlfriend, now when the relationship is over, due to impermanence, you'll get frustrated or angry or sad or some other discontent feeling. So these conditioned feelings are the problem, that the mind's going up and down in the unenlightened state. So when you can train your mind in meditation and exercising it to have mindfulness or awareness of mind in concentration, and you can eliminate craving, desire, attachment, that now in daily life where you see your mind longing, yearning, and it's pulling towards something, you can restrain the mind, you can pull it back if you've exercised the mind this way in meditation. So your practice to get to enlightenment, it involves meditation, and you're building qualities of mind in meditation, but then you're practicing those in daily life. It's much like a professional athlete might go into the gym and they might train in one particular way, but then when they go out in their sport, they're going to perform their sport a different way. So if I was a pole vaulter, for example, I might go into the gym and do weightlifting, some cardiovascular training, some agility training, and things like this. But then when I go out to the sport, I'm going to do pole vaulting, right? It's completely different than what I'm doing in the gym. So it's the same thing that when you're in meditation, doing breathing mindfulness meditation, you're exercising your mind to have mindfulness and concentration, and you're cutting off any and all thoughts that might arise because you're trying to gain this discipline of the mind, this control of the mind. But then in daily life, you're just cutting off the unwholesome thoughts. If you have a wholesome thought in daily life, like maybe you'd like to take your friend to dinner, maybe you'd like to get a gift for your mom and practice some generosity or something like that, that's very wholesome. You can go forward with that. That might be a very wise thing for you to do. But when there's these unwholesome qualities coming up in your mind in daily life, any kind of cravings or desires, you can cut those off and let them go if you've been training your mind this way in meditation. So that's what breathing mindfulness meditation is there for, is to build up the qualities that you need when you're actually in daily life. And that's why we're doing it 2 or 3 times a day, so that you build in these qualities so that then when you go out in daily life, you can actually practice them. And now you can train your mind throughout your day to be restrained and not allow it to long and yearn and pull towards certain things that the mind is chasing after. You can learn how to have a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a husband or a wife and enjoy that, but not be attached to it. Or you can have a pair of shoes or a mobile phone or a computer, or any of these other things that you might need, but you're not attached to it. You're not seeking your inner fulfillment through this external thing. Because as long as you're attaching your feelings to this external thing is not permanent. Your computer's not permanent, your phone's not permanent, your relationships aren't permanent, your bank account isn't permanent, your job is not permanent. So if you base your inner feelings on these things, when those things change, you're going to end up in the sadness and the anger and frustration and other discontent feelings. So it's a matter of learning how to have a job, have relationships and these types of things, but without craving, desire, attachment, where you're forming conditioned feelings internally based on the condition of having these things or not. So it's breathing mindfulness meditation that's going to help you to be able to do that. Because when the mind gets its cravings fulfilled, it's going to get these pleasant feelings. And when it doesn't get what it wants, it's going to get these painful feelings like sadness, anger, frustration, and others. And that's where the next meditation comes in, is that when your anger is arising, when your frustration, when your bitterness and your hostility is arising, your intentions, your speech, and your actions are going to be bitter and harsh. And you might put that out towards another person. We've all done that at some point in our life, where we've been bitter and harsh or hostile to somebody. And it ends in broken relationships typically, or at least strained relationships where you have difficulties in your relationships. So as long as you keep thinking that other people are causing you to be angry, you might be bitter and harsh to people and thinking that you're justified in your anger. Because when the mind lacks wisdom to understand that it's causing its own discontent feelings, there's three things that will typically happen. When you have anger or some other painful feeling arise, you might push somebody away out of your life. This is called aversion. And if you push people out of your life thinking that that's going to solve the problem, it's not actually solving the problem, because you just get irritated or annoyed or frustrated about something else. So if you keep pushing people out of your life, then there's fewer and fewer people that you can spend time with, and you'll find that you might be quite lonely with not too many people in your life. Or if you become bitter and harsh and hostile towards people, they might choose to leave out of your life because they're not interested in being around that. Or the third thing that the unenlightened mind will typically do when it doesn't understand that it's causing its own discontent feelings is you might put your expectations on somebody, trying to control that person and try to get them to do things your way. Because the unenlightened mind has these cravings. It wants the object of its affection to be fulfilled. And it feels like if I can just get things my way, then everything would be perfect. So you might find yourself putting expectations on other people, trying to control them to do things your way. But none of these things work. If you push people away, that's not going to solve your anger. If you become bitter and harsh and hostile towards people, that's not going to solve your anger either. And putting your expectations on people, that's not going to solve your anger either. That's not going to solve your problems, because people can't permanently do things your way. As I mentioned, there's 8 billion people in the world. You can't train everyone to do things your way. So what this second meditation is loving kindness meditation, where you train your mind to have this active goodwill, or this genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. And slowly but surely, this will wear away the harshness and the roughness and the animosity that's in the mind, the bitterness. And over a period of time, you can wear this away. You can uproot this pollution out of the mind, and you can find through your intentions, your speech, and your actions that you can be loving and kind and generous to people. And the more that you put that out, that is what will come back to you. This is part of the natural law of karma. You might have heard the word karma being used at different times. This is the Sanskrit version of this word, but in the original teachings of the Buddha, we use the Pali language. So we use the word karma. So this is a Pali word, the word karma. If it translated to one English word, I would just use that English word, but it doesn't translate to one English word. Sometimes people misunderstand this natural law of karma. What it is it's cause and effect, or action and result. It's the results of your decisions. It's not anything mystical or magical. It's not punishments and rewards. It's not about who's at fault or who's to blame. It's the results of your decisions. So for example, when you're polite, kind, friendly, and respectful to people, then people will tend to be polite, kind, friendly, respectful to you. And conversely, when you're impolite, unkind, unfriendly, and disrespectful, people will tend to be that way with you as well. This is the results of your decisions. So when you make wise decisions, it will produce wholesome results, or wholesome karma. When you make unwise decisions, it will produce unwholesome karma, or unwholesome results. So one of the unwise things that the unenlightened mind does is it becomes bitter and harsh and hostile towards others. And one of the things that you can learn as wisdom is to practice loving kindness, or this genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. But you're not going to be able to easily do that. You can't just learn in a class like this, snap your fingers, and you're just instantly loving and kind to everybody. You need a tool or a technique to be able to help you cultivate that in the mind. So that's what loving kindness meditation is it's helping you to cultivate the mind to be more loving and kind, so that now in daily life, through your intention, speech, and actions, you can be loving and kind. So this meditation is helping you to eliminate the unwholesome quality of anger, hatred, ill will, and all the lesser versions like frustration, irritation, annoyance. And it's helping you to cultivate the loving kindness or the goodwill, the genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. And when you practice this and you're putting out more and more loving kindness through your intention, speech, and actions, over time, that's what will come back to you. You'll see that your relationships will really blossom because you're no longer being harsh and bitter in your relationships anymore. Then this third meditation is called the meditation to eliminate sexual cravings. If you are learning the path to enlightenment and you have a lot of sexual cravings, which is not necessarily uncommon, sometimes this is the case, you might decide that you would like to temper that, because the more that the mind is craving sexual contact, you'll find that you'll be agitated because you can't get it all the time. And sometimes when people are learning these teachings, they might be in relationships with multiple people, having sex with multiple people, and they might decide to come down to just one partner, but they still have this sexual craving that they're struggling with. So you can use this particular meditation to reduce your sexual cravings. By the time somebody gets to enlightenment, they're not actually having sex at all any longer, but that's not something you need to do right now or tomorrow or the next day. But over time, as somebody trains their mind, you ultimately get to a point where you realize that by continuing to have sex, there's going to be times when you can get it and you'll feel pleasure during those times, but it's only temporary. And then there's going to be times where you can't have sex and you'll be agitated and annoyed and frustrated. You can actually get all the way up to the second stage of enlightenment and still maintain sexual contact. And in that second stage of enlightenment, you've significantly reduced your discontentedness. You're living a very peaceful life. You can do all the other work on the path to enlightenment and still be maintaining a sexual relationship, but you're still going to get agitated when you can't get sex and you want to have sex. But you can do all the other work on the path and maybe maintain your sexual relationship into your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, however, whatever age you decide. Nobody's going to tell you to eliminate your sexual contact. Nobody's ever going to force you or try to convince you to do that. But at some point, as you're training your mind, you might decide that you would like to eliminate your sexual contact. And maybe your partner is at that point too. Maybe as you guys age, the sexual contact that we have, it's not permanent. We're not going to be on our deathbed having sex, even though we might think that that might be the case. But we're most likely not going to be doing that. So at some point, you and your partner will probably decide that there's so much more value in your relationship and your conversations and the time that you spend together, that the sexual activity, you've been there, you've done that, you experienced it enough times, and you might decide to move on from that. And you might need some help to eliminate your sexual cravings. And that's what this meditation is there for as well, to either reduce your sexual cravings or to completely eliminate them 100%. And I'll explain to you how to do these when I get further into the discussion here. Then there's this meditation to realize non-self. What this is helping you to address one of the pollutions that are in the mind. One of the pollutions that the Buddha discovered is called personal existence view, where the unenlightened mind thinks that this body or this mind is you. And now, if you hear agreeable things about your self-image, you will get pleasant feelings. So if somebody compliments you on the way that you look, like, wow, your clothes look so beautiful or so handsome, or your hair looks so interesting today, you might get pleasant feelings. You're so happy when somebody compliments how this physical body looks. But because of impermanence, it's only a matter of time before somebody says something degrading or disparaging about how you look. And maybe they didn't even mean to say it, but you took it a certain way, and now you're going to feel painful feelings like sadness or frustration because they're commenting about your self-appearance, your self-image, and now your mind takes on either these conditioned pleasant feelings or painful feelings. And you can't control what other people say and what other people do. So as long as you think that this body is you, when somebody says something agreeable to you, you'll get pleasant feelings. But when they say something disagreeable to you, you'll get painful feelings. And the same thing is not only happening based on the self-image, but it's also happening on the self-identity. Your mind is holding on to certain identity, like maybe I am an American, or maybe I am from Poland, or I am German, or I am Lithuanian, or I am a Brit, or I am an Aussie, or any of these things. I am Chinese, right? This I am. Or like if you have a certain job or a certain occupation, you might take this on as your identity. So now if somebody says something about your ethnicity, your culture, your sexual orientation, your job or occupation, if you hold this in the mind as this is who you are as a person and this is your identity, when you hear something agreeable about that, you'll get pleasant feelings. But when somebody says something disagreeable about any of these things, then you'll experience the painful feelings. And your mind's going to go up and down because of holding on to this body or this mind, thinking that this is who you are. So some of the other complications you can experience with this is if you've ever like spilt some, pizza sauce or chocolate ice cream on your clothes and you got embarrassed. This is because of your personal existence view. Or if you got a wrinkle or a mole or a pimple and you felt, diminished because of that. Or if you got a gray hair, or if you're losing your hair and you might feel diminished because of that. That's because the mind is having personal existence view. It's thinking that this body is who you are. Or with the mind, the self-identity, if you ever had a job and then you did that job for a period of time and then it was over and you felt kind of lost in the world, that you weren't doing this job anymore, you felt like a part of you is missing, like a part of yourself is gone because you're not doing this job, because you associated with this job as being who you are. And now that you're not doing this job anymore, you might have felt like less of a person. Or if you were in a relationship with a boyfriend or girlfriend or husband or wife, and your mind assumed this identity that I am a boyfriend or I am a girlfriend or I am a husband or I am a wife. And now when you guys separated, you weren't that role anymore. And you might have felt like you wanted to hurry up and get right back into another relationship to assume that role again. That's from personal existence view. That's the mind identifying with a certain role, thinking that that's who you are. But all of these things are impermanent. The physical body is impermanent. The things that you do in the world, the roles that you fulfill in the world, they're all impermanent. So if you cling to these things and hold on to them, thinking that this is who you are, when things start changing, you'll feel kind of lost, or you'll feel embarrassed, or you'll feel less of a person. So the Buddha provides you teachings to help you do what we call realized non-self, where you realize that this body nor this mind is you, that it's not who you are, that there is a physical body, there is a mind that's come together for this existence, and there is a human being that is here in existence, but this body nor this mind is you. And it takes time to learn this more and investigate it more, penetrate it more, be able to see the truth through reflecting. And then as you start practicing, you might decide to practice this meditation to realize non-self, to help the mind more clearly see that this body nor this mind is you. It's not who you are. Some of the words that the Buddha shares is he says, there is no you there, that there isn't a you there. That is just a body. It's just skin and bones and fluid and organs, but none of that stuff is you. And this will help you to be more confident and more secure in life. You'll find that you won't be shy or embarrassed or things like this in certain situations. So this is a meditation that some people need as well. So these first two, breathing mindfulness meditation and loving kindness meditation, everybody's going to need these in order to get to enlightenment, because they address two of the three major problems that the Buddha discovered. It addresses craving, desire, attachment, and addresses anger, hatred, and ill will. These other two are specialized meditations that only people are going to need in unique situations. Not everybody has the need to eliminate sexual cravings. Not everybody needs this particular meditation to realize non-self. There's other ways that you can work to eliminate the self and the idea that there is a self. So these other two are specialized meditations that you use kind of on a case-by-case basis. But when you first get started, you're typically building up your breathing mindfulness meditation and your loving kindness meditation as a way to get started. Do you guys have any questions on these meditations that you guys would like to ask now? Remember, you can do that using the microphones there, or online. You can put it into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or in Zoom, you can raise your hand electronically. No? Okay. I'm not seeing any questions here online either. Oh, maybe we have one here. Hold on. Let me see what this is. Okay. You're welcome. For all of you guys online, there's people saying thank you so much for teaching, and you're helping me to learn, so forth and so on. You guys are all very welcome. Pleased that you guys could join us today. Okay, so now let's look at the words of the Buddha related to each individual one of these meditations, so you can see that he actually taught them and what he actually taught. Now remember, there's extensive amount of collection of teachings that the Buddha taught. His teachings are organized into 45 volumes of books that are about this thick. We call it the Pali Canon. It's 45 books. And I've consolidated it here into 13 books to make it more accessible and easier for you to digest. But here I'm just extrapolating a couple of teachings for each one of these meditations to be able to help you build some confidence of what the Buddha actually taught. And you can see through his own words what he taught. So here is a phrase that I typically help people learn as it relates to meditation. He says, a pot without a stand is easy to tip over. A pot without a stand is easy to tip over. The pot is the mind. The stand is your meditation practice. It's easy to tip over your mind if you don't have a meditation practice. It's easy for your mind to become angry, frustrated, irritated, or annoyed if you don't have a meditation practice. As you learn and you practice meditation more and more, the stand becomes wider and wider, and it's harder and harder to tip over your mind. Like I mentioned, by the time you get to enlightenment, you're no longer experiencing any anger, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, boredom, loneliness, shyness, resentment, jealousy, stress, anxiety. Even the slightest displeasure is eliminated. You're never even in a bad mood anymore. And it comes through training the mind in meditation, but there's other things you need as well. So this is a nice phrase to keep in mind, that when your pot is tipping over, when you're discontent and irritated and frustrated, it's because of the stand. You need a wider stand. You need to develop your meditation practice. Here, the Buddha is saying in prioritizing breathing mindfulness meditation, I'll read this to you guys. He says, monks, there is one thing that, when developed and cultivated, leads exclusively to liberation, to freedom from strong feelings, to elimination, to peace, to direct knowledge, experience, to enlightenment, to nibbana. What is that one thing? Mindfulness of breathing, or breathing mindfulness meditation. This is that one thing that, when developed and cultivated, leads exclusively to liberation, to freedom from strong feelings, to elimination, to peace, to direct knowledge or experience, to enlightenment, to nibbana. So he's not saying you only need one thing in order to get to enlightenment. Otherwise, he would have just taught meditation and that's it. We wouldn't have had 45 volumes of books. Instead, what he's saying is, it's like this car. It leads to one thing, which is transportation. It takes you from point A to point B. He's saying this meditation, it leads to one thing. The only thing that it's beneficial for is to get you to enlightenment. That's what it does, is this breathing mindfulness meditation. It gets you to this peace, to this freedom from strong feelings, to this liberation, this freedom of mind. So if you're practicing breathing mindfulness meditation, it's going to lead you to enlightenment, and you need other things as well. And there's other teachings where he prioritizes breathing mindfulness meditation, and he talks about it as the best, most high quality of wholesome karma that you can generate. Remember, karma is just the results of your decisions. So if you're eliminating craving, desire, attachment, and you're cultivating mindfulness and concentration, which are what you're cultivating in the mind with breathing mindfulness meditation, this is the best thing you could be doing in order to train the mind and cultivate the mind, because you're reducing the cause of the anger and the frustration and the sadness and the fear and the guilt and the shame and the boredom and all those other feelings that are uncomfortable for you to experience. So this is that one thing. It leads to this liberation, to enlightenment. Here's some guidance on actually how to do breathing mindfulness meditation, which you guys just did this morning as we did this together, that we focused on the breath, either the sound of the breath or the sensation of the air over the skin. And as the thoughts arise in the mind, you cut those off and let them go. Your goal isn't to eliminate your thoughts in meditation. Sometimes people think that's the goal of the meditation, but as long as you're alive, you're going to have thoughts. Even when you're enlightened and you're meditating, doing breathing mindfulness meditation, you're going to have occasional thoughts in your meditation. But the difference is that in the unenlightened state, when you're first starting to meditate, you can have a bombardment of thoughts. right? So you might have had that today. You might have had like thought after thought after thought after thought. Or you might have had a thought and you indulged in that thought and followed it for a couple of minutes. And then you realize like, oh yeah, that's right. I'm meditating. Let me bring the mind back, right? You might have indulged in it for like 2 or 3 minutes before you brought the mind back. So that's what the unenlightened mind will do, is you'll either get at this bombardment of thoughts, or you'll indulge in a thought for a period of time before you realize you're meditating and need to bring it back. But by the time you get to enlightenment, you'll still have thoughts, but it won't be a bombardment of thought. It'll be an occasional thought, and you'll notice it sooner and sooner, and you'll be able to cut it off and let it go and bring the mind back. So you're not trying to eliminate the thoughts by training your mind this way. You're trying to train the mind to easily let them go, so that in daily life, when you're out and about and you're noticing the anger starting to arise, you can cut it off and let it go. Or you're noticing the guilt or the shame or the loneliness or the boredom arising, you can cut it off and let it go. Or if you're feeling resentful or hateful towards somebody, or you see your ego arising, like the arrogance and the boastfulness, you can cut that off and let it go, if you've been training your mind this way in meditation. So by exercising your mind this way regularly, then in daily life, you can easily cut these unwholesome qualities off. And over time, you'll get to the point where they won't arise anymore, because you've eliminated the conditions that are causing them to arise, that there won't be any anger or frustration arise if you train your mind close enough. So the goal is to cultivate this mindfulness and concentration, bringing the mind into the present moment and training the mind to easily let go and eliminate this craving, desire, attachment. Then there's this loving kindness meditation, which I teach in various courses and retreats that I share. That's a completely different style of meditation, where you're still using the breath and you're breathing in and out of the nose, but on the out breath, you're saying an affirmation like, may I be peaceful. And you do that on the out breath. And then you breathe in real slow. And then on the out breath, may I be safe. And then you breathe in. And on the way out, may I be well. And then you breathe in. And then may I be free of all discontentedness in the suffering it causes. You start with I, because in order to have loving kindness for others, you need to learn how to have loving kindness for yourself. Sometimes in the unenlightened state, you have negative self-talk in your mind. You might be degrading or having this diminishing thoughts where you're degrading this being who you are now. So you need to learn how to have loving kindness for yourself. So this first ring, or this first affirmation, is to help you cultivate loving kindness for yourself and gradually wear away that negative self-talk that you might have in the mind. And then you move on to wider and wider rings. Here I just have 3 on here, but this is just for learning purposes. Ultimately, by the time you cultivate this meditation, you'd probably like to have about 6 or 8 different rings. And you're going to customize this meditation for your specific needs. If you have anger and hatred towards your parents or your brothers and sisters, or maybe a life partner that you had in the past, or a boyfriend or girlfriend, maybe a boss or a friend or family member, you would like to include them in your meditation, where you're essentially rewiring the mind to no longer experience the anger. Because right now in your life, when somebody does something you disagree with, you might go down this well-worn path of anger. And this path is really well worn out, right? It's just like the grass has been pushed back, the stickers and the branches and the bushes have been pushed back. But you know where this path leads. It leads to broken relationships. What you're doing with this meditation is you're rewiring the mind to no longer go down that path. You're getting out your machete and you're knocking down the bushes and the stickers, and you're creating this path of loving kindness, this genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. So that now when somebody does something that you disagree with, you understand that this is normal. This is impermanence. You're not going to agree with what everybody does. If you can only be joyful and happy when your parents do what you want, or your brothers and sisters or your family members do what you want, then you can only be happy in a limited situations. But if you can understand that you can love the person while disagreeing with their choices and decisions, then you can love everybody. Because you're not going to agree with your family members or the people around you. You're not going to agree with everything they do. But you can disagree with their choices and decisions while still loving the person. So you can create this new path of loving kindness where you have this genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. So it's this meditation that's rewiring the mind and helping you to break free of this anger and no longer going down this path, and instead choosing to go down this path of loving kindness, where you have this genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. So you would like to create these rings and customize it based on situations that you have in your life. As I was growing up, I had a lot of resentment from my mother based on things that were going on in my childhood. And even in my early adulthood, I had a lot of anger built up in my mind that whenever I was around my mom, I was resentful and had bitterness and animosity towards her. And she was the same way with me. It was like this rubber ball bouncing around. She would pick up the anger and throw it around. I would pick it up and throw it around. She'd pick it up and throw it around. We had all these rubber balls bouncing around of anger. And it was very difficult to have a relationship because of the anger that was in my mind and the anger that was in her mind. So as you do this meditation, you can transform your mind where you can just be loving and kind. And then the more loving and kind that I was to my mom, she was becoming more and more loving and kind to me as well. And by the time she died, there was no issues in our relationship whatsoever. There was no hostility or animosity or bitterness or anything. But that's because I needed to transform my mind first. If I was waiting for mom to improve before I improved, now my mind was attached to her. But instead, I chose to do the work. And then when I chose to do the work, I was able to then create a better and better relationship with my mom. So it comes from you deciding to train your mind that you'll experience improved results in your life. And you may have people in your life that are like that too. On the path to enlightenment, there's usually certain relationships that you have right now that you have bitterness and hostility in, and that you might decide to just move on from those relationships, that you're not committed to them. There's too much animosity on your side and or the other side, and it's better to just let go and move on from the relationship. Then there's other relationships that you have right now that you're committed to, and you'd like to work those out, like me with my mom or my sister or other people like this. And you might be committed to working those out, but you need to do the work first within your own mind. And then there's a third category of relationships that you forge on the path to enlightenment, which are completely new relationships that you don't even have awareness of who those people are right now. You haven't even met them yet. You're going to meet them in the future. But in those relationships, you'll only ever be loving and kind. You won't be bitter and hostile toward them because you'll have trained your mind. And now you can be loving and kind. So there's these three categories of relationships. Some relationships you're going to let go of and you're going to move on from. Others you're going to be more committed to and you're going to work those out. And then there's this third category of brand new people that you've never met yet, and you're only ever going to be loving and kind to them. And that's what's going to come back to you in those relationships. So it's loving kindness meditation that's going to help you transform your mind to be able to do that in your relationships. And as you go through these affirmations, you would like the very last ring to be all beings. You're not interested in leaving out anybody from your meditation. So you'd like to go through these successive rings, and your meditation is going to be customized over time. So after I got to the point where I didn't have any animosity towards my mom anymore, and I noticed there was no anger there any longer, she moved out of my meditation. She wasn't in my meditation anymore. But maybe back then I was in business. I might have had a challenge with a coworker. Maybe the landlord one time came in. I owned my own business. The landlord came in and threatened to kill me in front of my customers, in front of my employees. He went into meditation for about a week or so to make sure I didn't have anger there. Sometimes I would be driving to work and I would get cut off in traffic and I'd feel some anger or frustration arise. They would show up in my meditation for a couple of days to make sure that the anger didn't get rooted in the mind. So you can customize this meditation based on your needs. You're going to probably need to meditate for several weeks to wear away this anger and hostility. And you're not going to know each day how much anger you wear away. It's kind of like a digging tool. If you had a digging tool with a wooden handle and you were digging with this tool every day, you're wearing away the wood on the handle every single day. But you're not going to know how much wood you're wearing away from the handle every single day. But when this handle is completely exhausted and it needs to be replaced, you're going to know that it's time to replace this wooden handle. So the same thing is true about your anger. When you do this meditation, you're not going to know each day how much anger you've worn away, but when it's completely gone, you'll know that. Because when I was no longer angry at my mom and I didn't get bitter and harsh at her whatsoever, you're going to know that, right? When it's been 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, you haven't had any anger whatsoever, you'll know that it's exhausted, just like that digging tool. So that digging tool, you're not going to know how much wood you wear away each day, but when it's completely gone, you're going to know that. So it's the same thing with this meditation. You just stay committed to it. You stay dedicated to it. Each day you're wearing away your anger, but you're not going to know that it's completely gone until it's actually completely gone. And it's been 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and you haven't experienced any anger anymore. So these are the first two that you need to develop and cultivate, because it addresses the craving and the anger. This is part of what we call the 3 unwholesome roots, or the 3 fires, or the 3 poisons: craving, anger, and ignorance. These are the 3 high-level pollutions that are in the unenlightened mind, and this addresses 2 of them. The breathing mindfulness meditation addresses the craving, and the loving kindness meditation addresses the anger. And now we're going to go into these specialized meditations. And I'll just give you guys a heads up that the visual aid that I'm about to use, it has a dead corpse on it, and the person's dissected. So if you have a little bit of a weak stomach, you might decide not to look at this. But this is how we train to eliminate sexual cravings. Okay, is that during the lifetime of the Buddha, he used what's called the 32-part body meditation. They didn't have photos and videos and things like this to use during his lifetime. They would envision the 32 individual parts of the body, and they would imagine this in the mind. Nowadays, what we do for this is we look at a picture like this, and we train our mind to be able to see the body as it truly is. Because when you have sexual desire in the mind, it's because your mind isn't seeing the body clearly as it is. We do all these amazing things to the body to make it look attractive. We do things with the hair, with the jewelry, with the clothes, with cleaning the body, which I'm not necessarily saying these things are unwise. I'm just saying that we do all these different things like perfume and cologne and makeup and jewelry and different things to be able to make the body look attractive so that somebody will be interested to have sex with us. And we see this outer shell, and that's why we're attracted to it, because we have this central desire in the mind, and we see this outer shell, and now we're attracted to this body, and you might be interested to have sex. But if you're looking to reduce your sexual cravings or completely eliminate them, if you can train the mind to see the body as it truly is, which is like this, then your mind will be able to either reduce or eliminate sexual cravings. Because if there was somebody that had their skin peeled off, and it was like, all right, go have sex, you can have sex with this person, you probably wouldn't be interested in doing that. So that's what this meditation is designed to do, is help you to be able to see the body as it truly is, and kind of help the mind to move away from seeing it as being attractive. This is one of the ways to help you eliminate sexual cravings. And remember, this is a specialized meditation. Not everybody is going to need this. Some people can maintain a sexual relationship with just one partner, and they don't have craving to go outside their relationship, and they don't need this particular meditation to reduce their sexual craving because they don't have that much of a significant sexual craving in their mind. But then there's other people that might need this. Or if you decide you're going to eliminate sexual craving 100%, you might need this to be able to eliminate it 100%. But it's just in specialized situations that you'll need this. And what you do is you just look at this picture, or a picture like this, with your eyes open, and you breathe in and out slowly but surely, and you just kind of imprint into the mind the way the body actually looks. So during the lifetime of the Buddha, they used the 32-part body meditation, where they envisioned these body parts in the mind, but they also used a real live corpse, because during the lifetime of the Buddha, and even now, some places here in Thailand, they will just build a fire with a bunch of logs, and they'll put the dead body on top of the fire, and it'll sit there and burn. And you can hear the body crackling, you can smell it, you can see it deteriorating as it's burning on the fire. And this is what they would do during the lifetime of the Buddha, is they would be in the presence of an actual corpse, and they would see it deteriorating, they would smell it. And I know this sounds pretty graphic, but that's what it's actually for, is to imprint into the mind that this isn't an attractive thing that the mind is chasing after. So this is something that people can do if you actually need this. And then the fourth one is this meditation to realize non-self. As I shared with you guys, the unenlightened mind is falsely thinking or believing or having the misunderstanding that this body or this mind is you and who you are. And what you do is you train the mind through these affirmations that I am not the body, I am not the mind, there is no self, I do not exist, I am not the body, I'm not the mind, there is no self, I do not exist. And you do this through affirmations, much like the loving kindness meditation, and you do it on the out breath. And it's not that there isn't a human being here. It's not that there isn't an existence. It's just that there is no I here. There is no me, right? If my mind identified with, I am a Buddhist teacher, when somebody says something kind and polite about Buddhist teachers, you would get pleasant feelings. But when somebody says something degrading and disparaging about Buddhist teachers, then you would get frustrated and irritated and annoyed. But if you don't identify with that's who you are as a person, and you just realize, okay, I'm performing the role of sharing teachings of the Buddha, but that's not who I am as a person, then when you hear agreeable or disagreeable things, it doesn't affect your mind. Because if somebody says all Buddhist teachers are horrible and they're leading people to hell or something like this, okay, well, that's not me. That's not who I am. I'm not a Buddhist teacher. I'm performing the role of sharing the teachings of the Buddha, but my mind doesn't identify with that's who I am. Or like this body was born in America, but my mind doesn't identify with I am American. Right? So if my mind identifies with I am American, and I'm sitting at a restaurant and somebody a couple of tables over starts disparaging and degrading Americans, well, now if I am American and that's what the mind identifies with, now you're going to be frustrated and irritated or annoyed in that situation. You might even act out unskillfully through your intentions, your speech, or your actions, which causes more difficulties and more problems in your life. So if you don't identify with these things as who you are, now you can reside more peaceful and joyful. So this meditation can help you to do that, but there's other teachings you need besides just this. And this is what you explore as various courses and retreats that you might dive into. And then just, this is kind of a recap. We don't need to go through this again, but then the last thing that I'll share with you guys before I open up the questions and end our class is, as you're developing your meditation practice, don't ever give up, because giving up on your meditation practice is to resign yourself to go back to being angry and frustrated and sad all over again. And you're going to still experience frustration and annoyance on your way to enlightenment. You can't just snap your fingers and instantly eliminate the pollutions of the mind and implement all the teachings of the Buddha. It's going to be gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. And as you're making your way along the path, you're going to see improvement, because you know in situations where you get angry and frustrated, and when those same situations are occurring and your mind is just peaceful and joyful and you don't experience the same agitation and irritation that you once did, you'll know that it's these teachings that are guiding you to that improved state of mind. But at different times in your journey to enlightenment, there can be some real struggles. There can be some real challenges along the path. And you might get to the point where sometimes you feel like you would like to give up. But I would like to encourage you to never give up. In the words of the Buddha that he shares on this is, he says, meditate, monks, do not be complacent, lest you regret it later. This is my instruction to you. This is the closest thing you'll ever get from the Buddha, where he's like, okay, go ahead, make your way to enlightenment. He's never going to push you. He's never going to force you or try to control you to do anything. He doesn't use guilt, shame, or fear to try to motivate you to do anything at all. This is the closest thing you'll ever get to him kind of trying to encourage you to say, yeah, come on, you need to meditate in order to get to enlightenment. Because if you're complacent in your meditation practice and your mind becomes angry and frustrated, you're going to regret it. That maybe you meditate once a week, or you meditate once a month, or once every 6 months, or something like this. You're not going to see enlightenment in that situation. So if you allow your mind to be complacent, you're going to regret it later when you're having difficulties in your relationships and struggles and challenges in your life. So if you can stay dedicated and diligent and determined in your meditation practice, then you can move closer and closer to this peace and this joy of the enlightened mind. So I'll just end here and just open up to any questions that you guys might have about meditation, or if you have any other questions about anything related to the teachings of the Buddha. Sometimes when people are here in Thailand, as you've been visiting temples, you might have different questions about what you've seen at some of the different temples, and people sometimes don't have anyone to ask. So even if you would like to ask some of those questions, you're welcome to ask those. And those of you guys online, as I've mentioned, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. Do you guys have any questions? You have another question? No? Seems like she's trying to encourage you to ask a question. Any questions here? Josh has a question.
The question I had that I was thinking yesterday, does a fully enlightened level 4 being need to continue meditating?
I wouldn't say that they need to continue meditating, but they do meditate. Because if you've been doing this practice for multiple years and you see that meditation gets you to this enlightened mental state, and now your mind's peaceful and joyful, you're no longer experiencing any discontent feelings, you're not going to just stop doing that. It's kind of like, you know that brushing your teeth every day leads to this improved flavor in your mouth, and you like having a fresh mouth. You're not going to just stop brushing your teeth because, of one thing or the other. So when you get to enlightenment, you've eliminated the 10 fetters or the 10 pollutions of the mind, but there's actually more concentration and more growth that you can experience. So it's not that it's like if you stopped meditating as an enlightened being, you wouldn't stop being enlightened at that point. But you would continue to meditate as an enlightened being because you've seen the benefit and the improvement that meditation has done for you. So you're not going to just stop there. And there's even more room that you can continue to grow. So while we call an individual enlightened, once they eliminate the 10 fetters, from there, they can actually increase their focus and concentration and clarity of mind even further beyond that by continuing to meditate.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. We have a question here online. It says, does loving kindness meditation help to eliminate irritation with things? Like when we are pressured with time or computer doesn't work properly, or that would be breathing mindfulness meditation. It's actually both, because the reason why the mind's becoming annoyed and irritated in those situations is because of craving, desire, attachment. So you're going to need breathing mindfulness meditation to bring down the cravings, desires, attachments, which will ultimately help to reduce anger, hatred, and ill will, because with less cravings, there's going to be less anger in the mind. But then you're also going to need the loving kindness meditation as well. So you're going to need both of these actually. But so I would encourage you to develop both of them together, because that's what's going to ultimately lead to the elimination of those types of feelings. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions anywhere. So what I'll do then is just end by thanking all of you guys for joining in today's class and invite you to come back if you'd like. We have classes here on Sunday, Wednesday, and Saturday. These are our regular classes each week. And then at different times throughout the month, we have various courses and retreats here. Tomorrow, we're starting a 5-day course, which is called Foundation in the Path to Enlightenment. It starts at 9 a.m. tomorrow, and it goes until 3 p.m. each day. We take a nice hour-and-a-half lunch break where you learn the foundational teachings to be able to get on the path to enlightenment and grow from there. And you can come for the entire 5 days if you like. There's even a tour on the last day. We go to a field trip to other temples, and I tour you around and teach you about the symbolism, architecture, and artwork that are in these various temples, and they're meant to help you to learn. But also, if you can only come for 1 day or 2 days or 3 days or what have you, you're welcome to do that as well. The course is at no cost. Everything we do here is at no cost. So you're welcome to join. All these books and resources like videos and podcasts and things are available to you online at no cost. You can download them for free. You can take them and go print them. If you like printed versions, we have them here at the temple that you can just reimburse us for our printed cost. Or you can get them on Amazon. If you have access to Amazon in your country, you can get access to all these materials. So you're welcome to join for any of these classes, courses, and retreats. You'll find the schedule on our website, which is buddhadailywisdom.com. We even have some of this information on the bulletin board here at the temple. And if you have any questions, you're always welcome to talk to me, and I will help you. You can even get personal guidance either while you're here in Chiang Mai or even when you're back in your home country. You can schedule appointments, and we can meet in Zoom one-on-one, because it's one thing to learn in a class and read through books and stuff like this. But then when you have unique situations that you're dealing with in your life and you need help, you might need to reach out to somebody to get help to how to implement the teachings of the Buddha in that specific situation. So as you need help and you would like personal guidance, you can even reach out, and I'm here to help you. You can ask questions through our online Facebook group. We have an online community. You can ask questions in our in-person and online classes. You can send me private messages, and you can even schedule personal guidance to meet in person or online. So thank you all for deciding today is a day that you'd like to learn the teachings of the Buddha, and for coming to learn. And as you need help, feel free to reach out for help. Have a very lovely and wonderful rest of your day. We'll see you next time. Sawadee Kap.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.